Good evening and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the session on beacons and iBeacons. This is another session in a series of exciting sessions we've been having on Internet of Things and related technologies. This is what we plan to cover as part of this webinar. Before we get into the details of the webinar, a quick logistics related point. What we'll be doing is that you can keep on typing your questions in the questions box as part of this webinar, and we'll try and answer as many questions by the end of it, because we'll have quite a few participants. We're expecting about 100 participants today. It is really difficult to answer in between, so at the end of the session we'll try and answer as many questions. So a quick look at how we'll be spending about 45 odd minutes in today's session. We'll be talking about beacons, what really they are, get a good understanding of the business behind the beacons. We'll actually look at a few use cases of beacons and then how it applies in different areas. We'll go a bit deeper into the different technology options and then how this entire technology works. What's the market space of it? Some idea on who are the different manufacturers of beacons and iBeacons in today's environment, and then at the end of it, we'll try and answer as many questions as possible. Before we get into uh, the details of beacons, let me just quickly introduce to you about Excelta. So Excelta is an IoT Internet of Things company. We are based out of Hyderabad, India. We started sometime around October 2013, and we are in the business of building solutions and products in the remote asset management space of IoT. One of our solutions related to sales management has already been deployed with Coca-Cola India, and we are right now in the thick of things of going to market with a unique and exciting physical security product uh, right now, which is in a field test stage. Uh, Parallelly, we've also come up with an osmosis platform, which is a device enablement and management platform. It's all available on the cloud, and which gives organizations and individuals an ability to use out of the box the entire functionality that is needed to connect and build your IoT solutions. There is, in fact, a free registration mechanism that people can use, and there are a lot of startups who are actually using that functionality for testing out and then building their features for their IoT solution. The platform also has a good big data analytics capability and visualization mechanism as well, which can be used for building business insights for your specific IoT solution. We had also launched this Excelta IoT Academy, which we launched sometime around May 2014. And then this webinar is actually an initiative as part of the Excelta Academy. We have recently, in May 2015, also launched a consulting service on IoT, wherein we are helping and offering an end-to-end IoT consulting to different organizations. As part of that, we help individuals and organizations do feasibility analysis, do prototyping and proof of concept. We also help them visualize and build and productionize also their IoT solution. So this is an exciting and interesting new division that we've launched, and then we're getting pretty good response around that. A quick look at our profiles. We are both from IIT Roorkee with about 20 odd years of experience in the technology space related to product development, technology management, architecting, consulting, as well as sales and business development. I'll not go into too much details of that, but just wanted to give you a brief perspective of what we bring to the table. Now I'll hand over to for Piyush to take it forward, and he's co-founder of Excelta, and he'll take you through the rest of the sessions. Over to you, Piyush.
Thank you, Manish. Thanks. Yeah, I hope everybody's able to hear me. Can you just type in the chat window, yes, yes, if you are able to hear. Okay, are you guys able to hear me? Okay, fine, fine, fine. Okay, so let me start. Manish has already introduced Excelta and about me. So let me start quickly with beacons. And it's a very interesting new technology. If you know about this English word beacon, right? Beacon means a ray of hope, a ray of light, right? And but we are talking about this beacon, we're talking about a ray of data basically. So it's a kind of a beacon of data, which is very unique in that sense that it is very small power consumption device, physically very small device, and it's wirelessly broadcasting in a very small and constrained area. Okay, so that area could be as small as a circle with a radius of 3 feet or 3 meters, or at maximum around 30 to 40 meters, depending on your use case. And they emit the signal using a protocol which is called Bluetooth Low Energy Protocol. Okay, and this signal is of course meant to be picked up by Bluetooth enabled phones basically, and then the phone takes that signal back to the cloud. So we'll get into details of how beacons work, but this is what beacon technology is about. And there's a backend cloud system to which the phone app communicates, and that is the backbone of beacon technology, where all the data resides and where all the decisions and all the actions which have to be taken reside, which are then passed on to the app. So we'll get into details of how the beacons actually work, but just imagine it now to be a small physical device, very constrained, emitting a stream of data periodically and consuming very little power. As little power as running on a single pencil cell or a button cell battery for a year or 2 years without any change required and no charging required. Okay, so these are some of the typical beacon features. And as Manish has mentioned earlier, just keep typing your questions as and when you get any question, and we will answer as many questions as possible towards the end of the session. I'll be taking another 30 to 40 minutes of session, and then we'll jump into question answers. So the data that a beacon kind of transmits is a very small and simple data. Because it's a simple device, it sends the data like a couple of numbers. The data is typically a couple or 3 numbers. The maximum size of data cannot be more than 32 MB or 32 bytes actually, not MB, sorry. And very little power consumption, as I mentioned. Maximum range is up to 150 feet. Ranges vary from 3 feet to 150 feet, and typically, they use a range of 30 to 40 feet max. And one of the property of beacon which is very useful is that you can figure out a distance of a beacon from your phone. Okay, so that is a property which is also extensively used in app development. We'll come to some use cases where you will understand it better. And it is supported by iOS and Android both. So it was Apple which kind of originally came up with beacons. It's the inventor of beacon technology, and kind of Google kind of picked it up from there and developed its own application on top of iBeacon. Okay, so that's how it has worked out. There are now some open source beacons also available. So we'll talk about them also. And then, of course, apps on the phone play an important part in beacon technology, because ultimately beacon communicates to your app, and the action happens in the app on your phone. And the cloud is there which kind of backs up the app and all processes all the data, which is ultimately used by this app to take actions. Okay, so let me get into more details of this so that you will get a better idea. And yes, we are going to record this session and it will be available on our website for you to view any point of time later also. So this is how the data flow of a beacon happens. So let me explain this. So you see here the beacons, right? So each beacon will have a unique identifier. Okay, so for example, let me say that I'm going to automate a big bazaar or beaconify a big bazaar store. I'm going to put 100 beacons in a big bazaar superstore. Okay, so just imagine that all the beacons inside big bazaar will have a unique identifier. It's a common unique identifier across all the beacons in big bazaar. Okay, so that is something which is pre-built into a beacon. Okay, and that beacon then starts sending out data, which is then possible for phones which are kind of enabled for that unique identifier to be able to read that data which is being sent by this beacon. So let's imagine that that ID is 123. So then this phone here, the smartphone here, is capable of reading the data which is coming from identifier 123 beacons. Okay, so it will be able to read data from all these 100 beacons. Okay, and in this phone, what this phone will do is, this phone will then communicate with the cloud and send this 123 beacon. And this cloud will have all the ecosystem built into it that, okay, 123 is Big Bazaar beacon. So this is the ads. And in the beacon, typically along with 123, there'll be some other data items also, like, the aisle number maybe, or the item number. For that matter, there will be 2-3 other words or numbers that you can store, which will be broadcasted by the beacon. And that data will be then passed to this cloud-based system. And this cloud-based system will revert back saying, okay, this is a Big Bazaar beacon, okay, and this is aisle number this, and this is item number this. So this is the information for that item. Maybe an ad, or maybe a alarm, or maybe some other feature, which will be sent back to this mobile, which will then be able to play that video. So for example, you are standing next to an aisle containing some item, let's say laptops. Then an ad from that laptop gets downloaded on your mobile because you have that capability or enable that ID, and then you can get an ad for that beacon, which could be very personalized for you. It can actually take your name and say, yes, this beacon is for you, and this is the this laptop is available for you. This is the cost of this laptop, and for you today is a special 10% discount. So that kind of thing will get downloaded into your phone and will play right when you are in front of that laptop aisle. Okay, so that's the power. Okay, and this big data kind of supports all this. So for example, yesterday you had done a search on Google search about laptops. You had gone to some online sites like Flipkart or Amazon and looked for laptops. Now today you're gone to the store physically to buy that laptop, and you get this message. So that all that data about this, what you searched yesterday and the things will be kind of processed here. And this will give this feedback to this, saying that yesterday this guy was looking for a laptop. Let's push a discount deal which is being offered by this company right in front of the aisle when you are there. So then the chances of buying that really increase. So we'll come to that as example, and we'll see how it works. Okay, so another point that I should cover here is the admin phone that you see here. That this admin phone is kind of, meant for configuring these beacons. So this is not for actually playing these ads. You can test by playing the ad on this, but then what will you do is the range, the power of transmission, and all those features of a beacon you can set, to kind of, so that in a aisle a person comes and stays there for like few seconds. That duration as a business expert in sales, and the product features and all that. So you will kind of set up the beacon to transmit at a particular interval and transmit for certain duration and all that. We'll come to all that technology behind it, but that's how a beacon works. So all that settings in the beacon you can do over the air. So you don't need to go back to the manufacturer or do anything. You just need to have an admin phone, and using that you can configure beacons for your store. Okay. So basically, as I mentioned earlier, beacons indicate their presence, which enables beacon devices which are enabled for that beacon with a unique identifier to be able to identify them. Okay, so when a user's device enters a beacon area, and you are enabling your beacon for, let's say, Big Bazaar ID, then typically, your user device will start getting activated as soon as you come in that sphere of influence of a beacon. Okay, so you can see here the example of a data, how the data looks like. So this is a unique identifier. This is an iBeacon unique identifier, and a typical data size that you can transmit is only 31 bytes. So typically you will have like a item ID or a group ID somehow to uniquely identify what this beacon is about, right? So that's the kind of data, very small data, very simple data, so as to consume very little power. Okay. Now let me do one thing. Let me go through some use cases of beacon to get you a better idea about how it is used. Okay, I'm only touching upon it a little bit while explaining to you the data flow. Let me now get into some details of some actual use cases which are already happening in the world. So this use case is about searching or location. So as I mentioned earlier, a beacon is able to kind of determine, your cell phone can tell you how far the beacon is from where you are right now. Okay, so GPS works across your city while you're traveling in the car or you are on the road. GPS doesn't work, unfortunately, inside a building, right? So iBeacon or beacon is essentially proximity GPS locator. Okay, this is which works inside a building. Okay, so now suppose you are going to a hospital. Okay, and hospitals are very confusing buildings. I personally find them very confusing. You don't know where the operation theater is, where patient wards are, where other testing equipments are, and where the doctor sits. So you go into a hospital, you have this beacon technology, you enable your phone for this hospital beacon, for that hospital. Okay, and then you are able to, the beacon is able to, you are able to, your cell phone app is able to exactly figure out where you are inside the building, and then you can, exactly navigate on the map and reach your destination, maybe a doctor's office and then some testing offices, or you can even enable that, beacons to kind of display through the help of beacon your reports also on your mobile. So that is an additional feature which you will understand a little bit later, but just understand this right now, that you are able to know exact position inside a building, and internal navigation in airports, hospitals, libraries, museums, your railway stations, everything becomes easy because the malls, with the huge malls, in order to navigate internally, this is a technology which is helping that out. So another use case is you go to a museum, okay, and all of these use cases are, going, a lot of spillover and a lot of other use cases are there. I'm just giving some typical examples that I have come across. So this museum here, you go to a museum. So now museums again are very confusing and large buildings again. So one is the navigation of the museum. Second is each and every item which is of important value in a museum. Just imagine beacons can be placed there. And as soon as you go near that beacon, maybe in 5-meter radius of that particular item, your cell phone app, which is again activated for this museum, starts displaying data about that artifact. Okay, maybe play a small video about that artifact, right? And this iBeacon can also ensure that based on your interest, so for example, you are very interested in, let's say, paintings, that you don't miss that aisle of paintings, that because it knows through the backend analytics system that you are very keen on paintings. So it will ensure that you cover that. If you don't cover that, it might even warn you saying you missed this aisle which has a lot of interesting paintings and stuff like that. So this is where it is becoming very, very useful, and such things like wherever you want to pass some information to some people who are in proximity of that thing, this is the technology. So you can imagine how many use cases in factories, in museums you can do using this. Again, a retail scenario. This is the largest use case of beacon. Already touch base upon it a little bit, but just you can see. So a person walks into the store, there are beacons installed everywhere on all aisles, let's say. So as soon as a person walks in, he gets a very personalized message based on his requirement that, okay, there's a special discount for you, Rahul, today, or you, Ajit, today. And you can, avail that discount right now if you buy this thing. You can even do something like, you probably bought a blue jeans earlier, and it kind of suggests you that, or you bought a white shirt earlier and it says you have blue jeans, saying 20% discount for you today if you buy this blue jeans, because you bought a white shirt yesterday and this goes great with that blue jeans. So such kind of very, very personalized ads which happen while you are in proximity of the thing that you are looking for is the key of this device. And this kind of leads to a huge increase in your potential of buying that stuff. So that's why retailers are very, very keen on implementing this technology. And as we'll see in later part of the session, how many stores and other people are going for it. Okay. So you can see here, basically why retail stores are so, after beacon technology, because, influences buying decision at the right place and enhances in-store shopping experience. So these are the key things, others are fine, very good experience and all that, but you get influence buying decision at the right place when you're right in front of that thing. So that is what is really propelling the proximity sales, basically it's called. That's another keyword for beacon technology. Another is health scenario. So you are in a store or a food store, let's say you buy and pick up something and you are allergic to it. Okay, so then this beacon again is kind of saying, okay, you are buying some leafy vegetable, for example, which you are allergic to, and that information gets passed to again cloud where your health records are integrated. So just imagine leafy vegetable or some soya product or peanut product which you are allergic to, and then immediately your phone warns you that this is something which you are allergic to and don't buy this thing. So these are the kind of benefits that you can derive out of this technology. So now what I do is I launch the poll one, just to kind of get some inputs from you, whether this technology makes sense for you. Just give me a second. So you can just answer this question, and we'll just move once we see enough answers. Okay, so I think over 85% approximately have voted. So let me just 85% have voted now. So let me just close this poll now. Okay, so let me just close this poll now and let's move back to the webinar. So I think 97% of you believe, yes, that IoT beacons are going to be an important technology of the future. So that's great to know. And I also completely agree, and almost 90% of you voted. So almost like, 100% of the audience here is of the same view as we are. Okay, so moving on to a little bit more of technical details of beacons. Okay, so you can see here that a beacon typically, as any electronic device, it will have a hardware, it will have power supply, it will have firmware. Beacon also has a smartphone interface where you need to connect to some app, right? And then the cloud infrastructure. So all these together make a beacon happen. And without any particular item, a real beacon will not work. And you can see here, something about the protocol. So iBeacon launched by Apple, and then Estimote, which was Android enabled iBeacon, which was built on top of iBeacon basically, and some additional features were provided by Android, essentially by Google. And then recently, Alt Beacon is an open source beacon project, which is said to be, I mean, it's not yet, I've not yet worked on it, but it's said to be more powerful than even iBeacon technology, as they have added an additional features. But it's a free of cost open source project. You can download it and work on it. And Windows 10 onwards, Windows is also going to support iBeacon completely. So it's a technology of the future. Everybody is moving towards it. So let me now go into each of these pieces individually. So of course, hardware consists of a microcontroller with a Bluetooth low energy chip inside it. So a Bluetooth low energy chip, a lot of people are manufacturing Bluetooth, especially Texas Instruments and Nordic Semiconductors. I've given some examples on my screen. You can read them. But these are essentially Bluetooth low energy, or Bluetooth smart as it is called, is very, very critical technology which has made this happen because it consumes very little power. It can work in a very constrained chip, and can work it's also enabled on most cell phones today. So after iOS 4 and after Android 4.3, all phones which are manufactured using these operating systems are BLE enabled, Bluetooth Low Energy enabled. People confuse Bluetooth Low Energy with Bluetooth, but Bluetooth Low Energy is called the next version of Bluetooth basically, and your phones will automatically work with it if they are beyond Android 4.3 and Apple 4. So that technology is making the beacon so popular because most phones today have this working. And as I mentioned earlier, the battery consumption is extremely less. We in fact bought one iBeacon like 5 months back. It's still working in our office, and it just uses this 620 mAh battery. And the claim on that manufacturer by that manufacturer is that it will last for close to 2 years. Okay, so that's the technology feature. Beacon firmware. So every beacon has a firmware, okay, of course, which you can use to kind of configure the beacon for your requirement. So each beacon will provide its own way of doing that. Some beacons provide apps to do that. Some beacon may provide some other way, you know. But then there are specific features that you need to understand on a beacon to be able to control it. For example, one key thing is transaction or transmission power. So transmission power kind of determines at what power you are sending out the signal of the beacon. Typically, the value ranges from minus 30, dBm is decibel. You must be knowing about it, I guess. So typically varies from 30 decibel milliwatt, minus 30 decibel milliwatt to 4 decibel milliwatt, and 0 decibel milliwatt is actually 1 milliwatts basically. So it's a very low power consumption thing. And as the signal travels in air, of course, it keeps on weakening. If you set your beacon to very high power, let's say 4 dBm, it will consume too much power. It will essentially run out of power within a month. And if you have 100 beacons in your store, you will not want to, keep changing batteries, so many batteries, right? So typically, you will keep the beacon range to 3 to 4 meters in the proximity of the stuff which you are trying to highlight. Of course, it can vary with your use case. You can even have a power supply built into a beacon, so you don't worry about power anymore. But then it depends on your use case. I'm just talking about typical examples, and it's very important parameter that you should understand before setting it up on a beacon. Another typical, so you can see here at 30 dBm, minus 30 dBm, a range will be like 3 meters, and at 0 dBm, which is considered very high power consumption, will be 50 meters. So typically you will not want it unless your use case dictates that. You will typically follow in 3 to 15 meters kind of range, or maybe up to 35 meters range, depending again on your use case. And another important feature of beacon is the ranging and timing settings, as it is called. So transaction power is one thing which determines range. Another thing which is very critical for beacon setting is the advertising interval. So there is like a typical interval between which a broadcast will happen from a beacon. So interval of 100 milliseconds means 10 times in a second the beacon will broadcast. So you will set your beacon to whatever you think a person will spend, how much time, how many seconds near your whatever thing you are trying to highlight or add about, and then accordingly you will set this setting. And but the power consumption again becomes very important. A 350 millisecond to 900 millisecond variation means your battery life in 350 millisecond means 3 times in a second. 900 means roughly 1 time in a second. And the power consumption actually in 350 millisecond is 4 times more than 900 milliseconds. So battery lasting 1 year using 900 milliseconds will last only 2 to 3 months using 350 milliseconds. So huge difference of battery life, which is very critical again for this. RSSI is the beacon signal. Again, it's a beacon signal strength at a distance. So whenever your phone is at whatever distance, RSSI will give what is the power that it is receiving, what is the signal power that it is getting. Okay, so knowing this signal power and knowing these are constant value which is published by all beacons, which is essentially at 1 meter distance, what is the RSSI value at a given transmission power. Okay, so if you know that value, that constant value, and you know the current strength of the signal, you can figure out the distance. Also, this distance is not 100% accurate. You cannot kind of make it accurate up to a feet, but you can have it accurate up to a meter or 2 meters. Okay, so once you know a person proximity within a building up to a meter or 2 meters, you can do a lot of things with that. And that's what this beacon technology is about, and really helping in developing those internal GPS applications. Okay. Another is beacon smartphone interface. So this is very critical, right? Ultimately, everything is about us, and this interface helps us, read the data. So ultimately, the usage of beacon is through this app. So once you are like, for example, in this example, you can say this, that, okay, go to baggage claim, and this is how you should navigate. It can actually show you a map to how to go to baggage reclaim and stuff like that in an airport. So similarly, this is going to become a standard where, we'll become used to it like we are becoming used to now to Google Maps and stuff. Similarly, we'll start becoming used to this beacon maps or something like that, or proximity maps, as it might be called in future. And a very powerful technology. And iBeacon, as I mentioned earlier, the original Apple beacon product. And very, very, I will not go into details of this, but they kind of visualized this thing initially, launched it, and gave it to the world. And a lot of companies are following iBeacon technology. There's a particular method where you can certify your device or your app for iBeacon from Apple. So they will certify your app that yes, it is iBeacon compatible, secure, and fine. And they will then host it also in Apple Store. So that's what you can do. Android also, of course, came up with its beacon. Whatever Apple does, Google does. Whatever Google does, Apple does. So this competition is there. But then they came up with some additional features. Like there's a 20 beacon limit for iOS operating system. If you have a cell phone, you're going into a store where there are a lot of beacons. Only 20 beacons at a time you can kind of recognize in your phone. But Android said no limit. Okay. So there are certain features. So I will not go into details of this because of lack of time. But Android built first initial product built on top of iBeacon, now coming out with its own beacon technology, and there are a lot of conflicts happening between these companies because Apple is the first one which has kind of patented this technology, and now Google is getting in some other way. So I don't know the legal angle, but there are some disputes happening. And cloud infrastructure is the brain of this. So essentially, you see, ID comes. Now this ID doesn't mean anything as of now. ID goes to the cloud. Then the details of that ID, like maybe some ad or some action, maybe even some action could be not just an ad or an image or some text. It could even be some action like switching on some lights, which will kind of focus on this item which is being displayed near that. So a lot of things can be done once you have that control and some action has to be taken. So all those kind of things, and a lot of intelligence can be built into the cloud. It can be integrated with Twitter's, Facebook's, all your backend systems of the organization, and all the data can be filtered down and put into this app. So a lot of applications can possibly happen because of this. So now I launched another simple poll so that you can get kind of what we are talking about here. So I'm just launching this poll, and you can just answer it in the next 1 minute probably. Okay, so I think around 85+% has voted. So I'll just close this poll now in a second. Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of 87% voted and 83% said yes. So I'm really glad to hear that 83% of people, like almost 70-80 people attending, are saying that their companies are planning to work something in IoT. So that's great to know. And that kind of speaks volumes about how this technology is going to define the future. So beacon market. So before I go to the beacon market, I will kind of a little bit talk about our service offering, which is that we are world's largest IoT trainer. Although it's a unique offering, we have already trained more than 600 people in IoT, and we give you end-to-end training, and me and Manish basically take the entire training. And we have a lot of practical experience. We have built our own devices, launched our own devices in market. And Coca-Cola India, for example, is our first client. And so we are kind of recognized now, at least in India and maybe in some other places also, as kind of industry leaders in IoT training. And our certificate does carry some value. So if somebody looking to kind of train in IoT can definitely do this training, which is the 2-day, the 3-day and 5-day online courses that we do regularly. You can visit our site excelta.com to figure that out, and if possible join it, because if you are trying to build your career or thinking about building your career in IoT, this is the first step which can really help you do that. And because you will be building an actual working device in this training, so you'll get an end-to-end feel about IoT. Okay, so moving on. Beacon is about proximity marketing, right? I already explained. So everybody's seeing an opportunity here, right? So there are, literally speaking, millions of developers required to develop an entire plethora of applications which will be required. So just imagine if all the stores, if one stores, for example, if Walmart implements it, then definitely all other stores have to implement, right? There's so much competition in the market, right? Everybody wants to draw customers. So already lots and lots of retail stores and they have started experimenting with it right now, this technology. Still in that phase. Some of them have started doing practical applications of it. Little bit tough to kind of do it initially, but once you start doing it, then really starts giving you rewards. And till now there are very few beacons in the world. The number looks large, but then the number of beacons are still very small. It's a very low-hanging fruit. Anybody who wants to get into this technology, right now is the time. And as I mentioned earlier, our training will also propel you in this direction, because you will get an end-to-end feel of IoT. What IoT is about and how beacon can help you in that regard. But anyway, coming to this, you can see here, if you see here, why people are, and this is a survey which was done for how many people are ready to use beacon, basically. So these 2 points: content that is relevant to interest and location. So basically, the content which is relevant to the location where you are standing in a store comes on your 62% people say that yes, they want to have it in their phone. And push notifications about sales promotions. When you are there, essentially at that point itself, you're getting a promotional offer or something. 80% people say they want it, and 77% people are saying they are ready to share their location. They don't have any qualms about it, and 72% people here are saying that they want to receive a relevant offer while they are shopping. So that's why shopping is one of the biggest use case of IoT beacons. And the number of people who are agreeing to this because they see the benefit is huge. That's why every retailer worth his salt is after this. And you can see that till end of last year, very few beacons, very new technology. 2013 it was launched. It's still maturing, still not mature, still getting there. And by 2018, but you can see in just 3 years, 4 years from now, talking about 50 million beacon units. So just imagine from 30,000 to 50 million in 4 to 5 years, the kind of demand that is going to be there for app developers, for beacon developers, for people who are specializing in beacons. We are talking here about job opportunities or business opportunities or consulting opportunities for you for the next 20 years. That's the kind of thing that is going to happen because of these technologies. And this is just one of the streams of IoT. There are so many other streams. Okay, and business potential is absolutely huge in IoT. So you can see here just another kind of assertion of the same point. The 20% increase happens in the purchase intent if the ad is sent right there when a person is standing in front of it. And 85% of the top US retailers want to get equipped with beacons by 2018. 85%. It's a huge market. So now coming to some beacon manufacturers, but before I go there, another small call. It will not take more than a minute. Just a little bit. Sorry about disturbing your thought process, but please do it. Okay, so that's fine. I think we have got approximately 75% of the vote. So that's great. So I'm closing this poll. So 77% are saying yes, they want to learn about IoT. So that's great, because this is the technology of the future. Anyway, so these are some of the manufacturers. So we have tried to take it from different countries. Some of the very few examples of maybe dozens more who are into this. In China itself, there are dozens of manufacturers of beacons, basically. So you can just go through this. So we are going to share the video of this webinar on our website. You can visit and watch it any point of time, and you can see. So these are some of the big manufacturers of beacons. These are some of the sites which I want to acknowledge, which I visited for making this knowledge. So now I think I'm at the end of this. So now let me start going through the questions and try and answer as many as I can.
If Piyush, maybe you can start from the bottom. There are quite a few questions that I've answered.
Okay, so let me start from the beginning. Okay, so I'll just skip those who have been answered by Manish already. Okay, so let me just go to the bottom. So I think most questions have already been answered. That's great. That's good. Okay. So Saurabh is asking a question, any ICs which are available in the market which support beacon? So basically you're talking about microcontrollers, Saurabh. So yes, there are multiple beacon SoCs, which is software on the, which is basically SoCs available, as well as multiple microcontrollers available which support beacon. So they are typically Nordic is a semiconductor manufacturer, so they are Nordic chips. You just type Nordic beacon chip, you'll get a lot of Nordic options. TI beacon chips, you'll get a lot of Texas Instrument chip options. So a lot of options available. So beacons can be used anywhere, Piyush. So Piyush is asking a question. You keep talking about store. How good the beacons are to your? So it is a proximity thing. Okay. So you can put it anywhere where you want some message to be passed for people who are near that beacon and who have enabled their cell phones for that beacon, right? In a radius of 30, 40 feet, 100 feet. Typically, that's the usage. You can increase the range by increasing the power. If you don't have power challenges, you can actually power it through, the grid also. But then it can be as useful for some use cases that you have in mind. Maybe in a park, guiding people in a park or something like that. It can be used anywhere. There is nothing which will prevent a beacon from working outdoors. So you can find beacons to prototype anyway. Just go on the internet, Sandhya, and you can, just type beacon. You can buy beacons. They are available at 1,500 rupees, which is roughly $25. You can just buy that. It will provide you an app also. You can download that app on your mobile, and you are on basically. But then developing some apps on it is not so simple, but it's possible definitely. So Sanjay Hirani is asking a question. You stated that Android device cannot be turned into beacon. I have heard that is not possible in Android. Is it true? Yes, Android device can be turned into beacon. So there were some conflicts initially, and Android developed its own app, developed its own technology on top of iBeacon, and it was a part of Android phones after 4.3. But then it was withdrawn in between. But now it is again in Lollipop version. It is still again there, but still some disputes because technology is on the Apple. The patent is in Apple's name, and Android is trying to do something. But then Android, now there are technologies available, as I mentioned earlier, which are freewares. So Android is now, so that freeware Alt Beacon, as I mentioned earlier, is essentially has come out with its Android version first. Possibly it's being egged on by Google. I never know. I don't know exactly, but Google probably is asking you to do that, and it has launched its first version on Android. Okay, so there's a device, there's a design there. I can see that, and that's how it is working. So Bluetooth certifications. So this This training is not about Bluetooth, but Bluetooth certifications you can possibly do, Swapnil. Not really aware about Bluetooth certifications. So Anurag is asking a question: is in the increasing use of mobile shopping, brick and mortar stores are facing huge challenge from them? What scope does Beacon have in such a scenario? So see, Beacon will have its own cost to implement. So small stores probably cannot do it, but in small store, you don't need a Beacon because the person is there to explain it, right? It's in large stores that it becomes more applicable. And small stores, although they face a lot of challenges, but they are not being wiped out. In India, you have seen that in work. They are still there and they are meeting their purpose. The big stores are also making money and they are also meeting their purpose. But then Beacon technology is not just about stores. Okay, and this is not something which is going to hamper anybody. This is something which is going to increase the chance of sales for everybody who is using it. So I don't see much challenge with respect to this Beacon causing any job loss or anything like that. Are there manufacturers in India? Not aware of any. But we in Excelta have built a mini Beacon in a way, Swapnil, that works on the same kind of principle, but it's a different thing. So we are using it in our security use case. We didn't know about Beacon at the time when we envisaged that device and built it. But essentially now we realize that it's a kind of Beacon only. Do we have to use framework to associate with Beacon? Jagdish is asking this question. So frameworks there is a iBeacon framework, right? Apple has come up with iBeacon framework. Alt Beacon has come with Alt Beacon framework. There are other frameworks also which are available. So yes, frameworks are there. You can download those frameworks. Apple iBeacon is entirely free of cost. You can download iBeacon, build your own apps, libraries. Everything is available, Jagdish. Alt Beacon also, iBeacon also. What kind of startup support is available for IoT? So Arun, good question. We in Excelta, for example, offer free of cost access to Osmosis platform for 1 year for people who want to develop devices in IoT. We also offer this training. Essentially, it is about people who want to build their devices or do something in IoT. It will give you a 3 to 4 month jump start into IoT space if you do this training. So that's what is a kind of available. And also, most of technologies of IoT are free of cost. Our entire IoT platform, our entire devices, everything is built on freewares from the software side. On the hardware side, there is of course some cost associated with things that you need to buy, but very minimal cost today. So a lot of support for people who want to be IoT aspirants today than what was there 1.5 years back when we started. So we have to struggle through it. That's where we developed this training, which will help you. Yeah, so question answers also we can publish. So these will be available along with the video or the recording of this webinar, Sunil, on our website. So requirements, Karthik, I don't know whether I understand your question completely, but this is a requirements as a learner, and you mean to say what you need to learn or how you need to learn. So that's something which you have to discover, but then you can do this training if you want to. That is one starting point, I guess. I don't know. How Beacon Tech can be applied to finance and loans? I'm currently associated with digital finance. So, the interesting question. We have to figure that out. But anywhere you want some proximity information to be passed about something, it can be. Or for example, if person walks near a LIC or an insurance booth, a beacon could be there, which can immediately publish the information about your loan, about the finance options, and how much you are giving. So that kind of. So you actually talk to person about, your features of your thing that you're offering, the loan or the finance option. You can make it come on to the person's mobile phone through a video, which could be very slickly made, or an ad using iBeacon. So that kind of things could be done. There could be many other applications also, but you have to think about it. It's a very new technology. It is being applied in multiple domains now. So Jagdish, I don't know about any beacon manufacturer in India, but it can be done. It's a definite possibility. So web application, web developer Selvan, yes. This technology is basically integrated with the cloud-based technology, right? As I mentioned. And cloud is entirely on the web, right? It's all internet enabled. A lot of scope for web developers. In fact, in our training, we exactly talk about what role a developer can play in IoT. You know, a typical Java developer or web developer or a JavaScript developer or .NET developer, what roles he can play in IoT without changing his domain. You don't need to learn about hardware. IoT is a very vast area where scope is there for each one of you in your technology area. So that's what this is about. PHP again, same Selvan. What is the type of battery used in beacons? If possible, please mention the company model number. Yeah, so we can do the channel. Get in touch with us. Write a mail to us at corporate@excelta.com. Go to our website and you can get our contact details. You can call us or mail us. We can tell you. But typically, a coin cell or a AAA battery can be used. It works perfectly. If the power consumption is very low, it will last for months and years. So Vishnu is asking a question, can we use beacon for one-way communication or is it possible to use two-way communication? So, till now I've not come across too many, two-way communications. And I think Manish has already answered this question, so that's fine. I'll just skip that. Is there any disadvantages using beacon, Sanjay? So disadvantage, there's always a disadvantage that if you are opening your phone to a beacon, there might be some security breach might happen. I don't know. This is such a new technology. Probably hackers are still catch up with it. Other one disadvantage could be too much information coming onto your phone. So if you don't use beacon, you might not get offers. Offers might start coming only for beacon users in future. So these are some of the disadvantages or advantages of beacon. So non-beacon users might be disadvantaged. So this question, Vaibhav, is a very generic question. What exactly is the role of beacons in IoT? So this is IoT device, right? As I already explained. So I don't know how to answer that question, but this is an IoT device. It talks to the physical thing, then it talks to a cloud and does some action based on that. So Manish has already answered the next questions. So Swapnil is saying we have also developed a beacon BLE based on microchip BLE module. Excellent, Swapnil. Probably we can get in touch and learn more about it. Okay, great. So one more question. As it is a smartphone consumes significant power. So if a person keeps the beacon scanner on, will not, yes. So there is definitely a power consumption. Actually, in the acknowledgements that I have shown, there is second acknowledgement is about power consumption of cell phone. So typically older models of phones, which are before the Android phones and Apple phones are actually better because they have been built for beacon technology now for last 1.5 to 2 years. Android is just catching up. But the latest versions of Android phones typically consume 1/3 the power as they used to consume in the older versions of Android phones with respect to beacon technology. So of course, the more number of beacons, more power will be consumed. Of course, it will consume power. Your battery will run out faster. But again, the power consumption has been really, really optimized. Is not going to make a huge difference. If your battery currently lasts 10 hours, probably it will start lasting 9.5 hours. That's the kind of difference. Sunil is asking a question. So Swapnil, just mail us at corporate@excelta.com and we'll get in touch, Swapnil. Corporate@excelta.com. Can someone who has hardware need not buy your training hardware can get some discount? I cannot answer that. Our training, is built on our training hardware, which is also very, very unique. There is a unique sensor board and other things. So, and the kind of connections and the things that you do are very particular for. So we give the tutorials and other things which are very particular to our hardware. So they say connect point 1 to point 2, which will not be there in your hardware, right? So those kind of problems will come. Okay, so I think I'm running short of time. Anaga, thanks for joining. So cost of training, you can go to our website, excelta.com, and you can find everything there. Manish has already answered. So mechanical engineer, Karthik, me and Manish are both mechanical engineers. Okay, and there's a huge scope for mechanical engineers. In fact, in our training, we actually talk about how mechanical engineers can make use of IoT. So a lot of scope for everybody here. IoT is a huge thing. It's a blessing in disguise for guys like us who can make use of it. Sure. So thanks everybody for your time. And keep, if you have more questions, do not hesitate to mail us. And we'll be in touch. Okay. So Vamsi, I'll take your question. How can you be sure that beacon is not just a hype as NFC and RFID? So first of all, NFC and RFID are not exactly hypes. They are still having hundreds of $1 million worth of business in those technologies, RFID especially. And beacon, it's such a powerful idea. Just see the idea. So, IoT itself is such a powerful idea, and beacon on top of it, one line of IoT, a huge idea, right? You can see the value, right, in front of you. So if somebody wants to close his eyes and not recognize it, it's his fault, right? It's an idea right now which is getting implemented. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But 95%, as you saw on the poll here, believe it's going to work. It's such a powerful idea. So thanks everybody. Looking forward to, kind of working or getting in touch with you guys either through our training or some other way. So have a nice IoT, break somewhere. So thanks for your time.